euros to fund the repairs and recovery of the region. Aftershocks continued to be felt throughout central Italy, a constant reminder to the whole nation of the terrible situation being endured by their fellow citizens in L'Aquila. Many who had lost their homes had been rehoused, although thousands were forced to remain in temporary camps.
It's difficult. We have a tent, and we stay, we don't know how long. Next week, maybe 1 month.
The city's historic centre, including the Basilica of San Bernardino, as well as the City Hall, remained closed to the public long after the earthquake, shut behind a sealed-off red zone while they were made safe and then painstakingly rebuilt. A process which appeared later to have been hampered by corruption in the awarding of public contracts.
So I visited L'Aquila about 5 years after the earthquake, and actually it was really shocking to see that there was still extensive damage in the city centre.
That really was a loss of identity to many L'Aquilans and people that live there, to have such damage to their historical city centre.
In the aftermath of the disaster, survivors began to question why they had not been warned of the impending catastrophe. The prediction of earthquakes has long been the holy grail of seismology.
Predicting earthquakes is currently impossible and may always be impossible.
While early warning systems are capable of giving people vital seconds to get out of buildings or assume safe positions, longer-term warnings that would enable mass evacuation, as have been possible for disasters like hurricanes, have proved elusive.
There is no way to know exactly when and where an earthquake may happen. We can do a fairly decent forecast of where earthquakes might happen. So we can say, yeah, this place is very likely to have some earthquakes, but we can't say when it's going to happen. So the word prediction just doesn't apply, unfortunately.
The whole issue of scientists' abilities to raise the alarm about earthquakes was brought into sharp focus after the L'Aquila quake. 6 scientists, all internationally respected seismologists and geological experts, along with a government official, were charged with multiple manslaughter. They were all members of a national commission for the forecast and prevention of major risks. Prosecution alleged that they had underestimated the risks posed by tremors that had been felt in the months before the devastating earthquake, and given inaccurate, incomplete, and contradictory information to the public.
Their advice was that there had been this background swarm of very small earthquakes, and what they said was that whilst that could lead to a larger earthquake, and they certainly couldn't rule that out, in most cases those swarms don't normally lead to a larger event.
The accused all vigorously protested the contentions of the prosecution.
The trial of the L'Aquila scientists was controversial because the earthquake experts who met at the meeting 6 days before the L'Aquila event actually gave very clear, measured, reasonable and scientifically accurate advice.
One of the defendants, Bernardo de Bernardini, said, "I believe myself to be innocent before God and men." When they were found guilty and sentenced to 6 years in prison, scientists from around the world were horrified. They felt that the trial set a shocking precedent which would deter experts from sharing important knowledge, ultimately leaving the public less safe.
I think the trial set a dangerous precedent, and in particular it had the potential to create quite a strong chilling effect. It discouraged scientists from engaging with policymakers, from engaging with the media on these really important humanitarian issues.
Enzo Boschi, one of those found guilty, said that he did not understand what he had been convicted of. Scientists maintained that it had not been possible to predict what would happen in L'Aquila. This opinion was validated when the defendants successfully appealed and their sentences were quashed.
It's hugely important that scientists engage with policymakers and with the general public to help feed into preparation regulations for emergencies and building codes to make sure that the actions that take place at a government level are actually based on a solid foundation of science.
Earthquakes kill and destroy by causing fires, ruptures in the ground, landslides and tsunamis. But more individuals die as a result of the collapse of buildings and other man-made structures.
The most important thing that could be done worldwide to reduce earthquake deaths would be for governments to enforce building codes.
So by far the most effective action that can be taken to protect people from this type of deadly disaster is to construct buildings capable of withstanding the vicious ground movements that occur during a quake. Huge advances in this field have been achieved. Shock absorbers made of rubber can be incorporated into the building's foundation to soak up the violent tremors. Steel frames within buildings are now designed to allow the whole construction to sway during an earthquake. Open areas in the immediate vicinity of buildings have been factored into planning so that people who can evacuate have safe spaces to congregate in. The chance to live in an earthquake-proof building would be some comfort for the millions of people that live near the world's fault lines. Without the ability to accurately predict earthquakes, it represents the best chance we have of surviving this particular kind of deadly disaster. Deadly disasters.
Welcome to the show where we put the natural world to the test. Yeah! All right, it's got up.
Probably should have thought this through.
You've done the hard bit. Look, Tim, an elk.
Animal Impossible starts Thursday the 30th of July, new and exclusive on BBC Earth.
We know his name, we know his face. But what do we really know about Egypt's most famous pharaoh, Tutankhamun?
Could have sustained a leg injury, which cost him his life.
Unravel the archaeological mysteries of his life and death.
It's all connected with a power struggle that had been raging in ancient Egypt for decades.
Tutankhamun Life, Death and Legacy, Sunday at 2100, new and exclusive on BBC Earth.